Exposed, the incredible secret that transformed a billionaire's son after 12 failed tests. Jack Thompson felt the eyes of his classmates burning a hole in his back as he shuffled down the hallway. The whispers followed him like an echo, each pitiful glance reminding him he was the billionaire's son who couldn't pass a single exam. He supposed he should be grateful for the lavish lifestyle, his home gleaming with marble floors and high-end appliances, his custom sports car parked in the driveway. But as he looked at his reflection in the glass walls of the school, all he saw was a boy suffocating under the weight of expectations and a fear of failure. 12 failed tests. It felt like he was clinging to a sinking ship. And every time he faced his father, Jack could see the disappointment in his steely blue eyes. But one October evening, everything changed. Jack accidentally stumbled upon a box tucked away in the attic. Inside were faded photographs and letters that told a story his father had kept carefully hidden. The face of his father in those pictures was different, young, weary, a soldier who had just come home to nothing. He had clawed his way up from a life of poverty, never wanting his son to feel the weight of privilege that came easy to them now. Jack's heart raced. The pressure he felt had roots in something far deeper than grades. His entire identity felt like a facade built on lies. As Jack sat there, surrounded by the remnants of a past he had never known, he felt both liberated and crushed. How could he live up to a legacy rooted in grit when he felt so far from being resilient? He watched his father work tirelessly, yet here he was, failing in front of him and everyone else. Suddenly, there was a knock on his bedroom door. He quickly shoved the box under his bed as his father entered, his face taut with the stress of a day that had further eroded their family fortune. Jack instantly knew that their world was slowly crumbling. It seemed the empire Robert Thompson had built was at risk. Whispers of financial issues had already spread through their community. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the walls of their luxury home felt more claustrophobic, Jack started reaching out to classmates he'd ignored before, those from the other side of the tracks. He discovered their struggles, their stories woven together with resilience and hope. In their eyes, he saw mirrors reflecting his own battle. It ignited something within him, a fire pushing him to step beyond his father's shadow. No longer did grades seem to matter most, but rather the friendships he forged through shared vulnerabilities. Just when Jack began to feel a spark of clarity, disaster struck. The news hit hard like a punch to the gut. His father's company was implicated in a scandal, whispers of deceit choking their once cherished name. Friends turned to judgment, and Jack felt everyone's gaze, that scrutiny twisting like blades. Torn between honoring his father's legacy and forging his own path, Jack stood at a crossroads. He could seek the truth, but at what cost? The community he'd grown up in felt hostile, and he was drowning in a tidal wave of expectation and chaos. As he contemplated his next move, Jack realized he had a choice to make. What would he fight for? What path would he carve out of this uncertainty? The storm approached fast, and he could feel its power wrapping around him. One thing was clear, the next steps he took could redefine everything. Would he sink or rise to the occasion, finally understanding the price of success? The answers awaited him just beyond the horizon. Jack stood at the window, staring out into the darkness that enveloped their backyard. The wind howled, carrying whispers of uncertainty, and he felt something deep within him shift. The world outside mirrored the turbulence in his heart. He could see the faint glow of lights from the neighboring homes, a stark contrast to the shadows lurking in his own life. His mind buzzed with thoughts. What did it mean to honor his father? Was he the man in those faded photographs, the one whose potential had been stricken by war and deprivation? Or was he simply a vessel for expectations, doomed to follow a path he never chose? The storm in his chest grew louder, drowning out the silent pleas for clarity. As Jack turned away from the window, he caught sight of the box he had hidden beneath his bed. The weight of its contents pressed down on him more than the scandal surrounding his father's company. With a surge of resolve, he pulled it out and began sifting through the letters again. Each word became a lifeline, a thread connecting him to a man he was desperate to understand. Among the letters was one that stood out, marked with his father's distinct scrawl. It read, "Jack, remember, the measure of success isn't in the absence of failure, but in how you rise each time you fall." Those words felt like a lifebuoy, but could he trust them? Inspired, Jack decided to confront the rumors swirling in the community. The need for truth burned fiercely within him. He slipped his phone from his pocket and texted a few classmates who had been part of the whispers, those who held pieces of a story he desperately wanted to understand. When the screen lit up with their quick responses, Jack felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this would lead him somewhere. The next day, Jack walked through the bustling halls with a semblance of determination. Instead of the washed-out shadows of fear and embarrassment, a flicker of courage sparked inside him. He could see the faces of his classmates clearly now, not as critics but as individuals facing their own struggles. It was refreshing and real. He approached an old friend, Mia, who sat alone in a corner, sketching in her notebook. "Hey, can we talk?" he asked, his voice almost breaking. Relationships had always seemed transactional to Jack, but he wanted this to be different. She looked up, surprise washing over her features before a small smile broke through. "Sure, what's up?" He took a deep breath and told her everything: his discovery about his father, the rumor mill buzzing with scandal, and his plans to find the truth. Mia listened, her expression shifting from curiosity to concern. "Jack, people will jump to conclusions. It's easier to point fingers than to see the actual story. But are you ready for what you might uncover?" Her words hung in the air, potent and unmistakable. The risk of unveiling the truth loomed large, but so did the chance to reclaim his own narrative. Jack squared his shoulders. "I have to know," he finally replied, the conviction in his voice surprising even himself. As their conversation deepened, they were joined by other classmates who overheard. Each one brought forward their own perspectives, some sympathetic, others skeptical. Jack found himself caught in a whirlwind of shared vulnerabilities, recounting their stories that had long been buried under judgment. In that moment, Jack realized this had become more than a quest for truth about his father. This was about unity, about weaving together the fabric of their collective experiences. As the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, Jack felt something shift within him, a sense of purpose. He stepped into the chaos of the hallway, but this time he didn't feel small. He felt powerful, a burgeoning leader ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. But just as hope started to swell in his chest, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen as a message popped up, turning his excitement to ice. "We need to talk," it read. "It's about your father." His heart dropped. What had he stumbled into now? Jack felt the pulse quicken in his veins, his heart hammering against his chest like a frantic bird trying to escape. The chill of the hallway seemed to seep into his bones. Somehow, the buzz of the crowd faded, leaving just the ragged sound of breath. "We need to talk. It's about your father." Those words loomed heavy in his mind, transforming everything he thought he understood into a whirlwind of fear and curiosity that he stepped outside, needing air, needing clarity. The cool breeze ruffled his hair, and he forced himself to breathe deeply. Thoughts twisted together like a knot in his stomach. Who had sent the message? What could they possibly know? Taking a deep breath, he glanced at the contacts on his phone, noticing that Mia was still texting him, probably checking in after their earlier conversation. He hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen, then turned it off. Clarity would come first. He needed to confront this before reaching out to anyone else. Jack moved to a nearby bench, the wood rough against his palms. He scrolled through the message again, trying to dissect it. "We need to talk," suggested urgency, perhaps secrets as deep as the ocean. This wasn't just about rumors anymore, it was about unveiling truths that had been buried. His thoughts drifted to that letter from his dad, the one where he insisted that success wasn't measured by the absence of failure. Was his father's life a life riddled with mistakes, one that defined failure? Or was there redemption buried within that story? Jack felt a pang of longing to understand a man he had never truly known. A shadow fell over him, pulling him from his thoughts. He looked up to see a tall figure standing there. It was Daniel, one of his father's old colleagues, a familiar face but one he hadn't seen in a while. "Jack," he said, his voice steady but laced with something unrecognizable. "I've been meaning to talk to you. It's about your father." Jack's heart sank further. "You know something," he stated flatly. There was no hiding the urgency in his voice. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture Jack had seen before. "I do, but it's complicated." "Complicated? Is it because the whole school thinks he's a fraud?" Jack shot back, frustration bleeding through his words. "Or is it because you think I can't handle the truth?" Daniel's gaze was stern. "It's not that simple, Jack. Your father he's not who you think he is, but that doesn't mean he's a monster." Jack stood, heat rising to his face. "You think I care about your excuses? I need to know the truth. There are whispers in the community. Your silence is only deepening the wounds." "I know," Daniel replied, voice dropping to a near whisper. "But this isn't just about whispers. This could change everything. Are you ready for that?" The weight of those words hung thick in the air. All around him, students laughed and talked, blissfully unaware of the storm gathering in Jack's heart. He was on the precipice, teetering between the familiar comforts of ignorance and the raw, dangerous truths waiting to be uncovered. Jack took a step back, his mind racing. Could he really handle the truth? What if it shattered the image of the man he had built up in his mind? "I have to know," he finally said, voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Daniel nodded, a flicker of approval sparking in his eyes. "Then let us talk. But you have to be prepared for what's to come. Truth comes at a cost, and it might change everything you believe." As they walked away from the bench, Jack felt the ground shift beneath him. This journey was no longer just about understanding his father, it was about unearthing secrets that could redefine his very existence. The path ahead loomed uncertain and dark, yet with each step, the fire of determination ignited within him. What would he uncover? And would the truth bring the closure he craved or simply open new doors filled with shadows? With the chilling uncertainty hanging thick in the air, one thing became clear: the real discovery was just beginning. As they walked side by side, Jack felt a mix of dread and anticipation swirling in his stomach. Daniel led him to a quieter part of the campus, away from the prying eyes and loud laughter of students. The sound of their footsteps echoed against the brick walls, each step a reminder of the gravity of the conversation awaiting them. "Let us sit here," Daniel said, gesturing to a secluded patch of grass. Jack reluctantly lowered himself beside him, tense and expectant. Your father was a complicated man. There were things he never talked about. Things that shaped his choices, and ultimately, his life. Jack clenched his fists at his sides, fighting the emotions threatening to surface. "You mean the mistakes? The failures?" he managed to say, his voice thick with hurt. Daniel looked down for a moment, collecting his thoughts. "It's not just that, Jack. Your dad had dreams as big as the world, but he got lost in them." He paused, as if choosing his words carefully. He had a lot of pressure, both from himself and from people around him. It twisted him in ways you might not expect. Confusion threaded through Jack's mind. "Are you saying he didn't want to fail? That he tried hard to succeed?" It sounded almost naive, but the longing to see his father in a different light sparked hope. Daniel nodded slowly. "Exactly. He did things that weren't right. Things that hurt people. But at the core of it all, he loved you. He wanted to be someone you could be proud of. Jack's heart raced at the thought, yet anger simmered just beneath the surface. But why didn't he try harder to change? To be a better person? Because change is hard, Jack, Daniel responded, his voice steady but imbued with sadness. He was scared of what it would all mean. For him, success turned into a prison. The more he felt like a fraud, the more he pulled away from you. A heavy silence enveloped them. Jack stared at the ground, the pieces of a complicated puzzle beginning to pool together in his mind. Suddenly, he felt more lost than ever. So what do I do now? He whispered. There are stories, Jack. All those whispers, they hold pieces of truth. You can choose to ignore them, but they're part of your story too, Daniel replied, the weight of his words sinking in. Jack looked up, meeting Daniel's steady gaze. And if I want to understand? What will that mean for me? For my family? It means stepping into the fire. It means the risk of discovering something that might not fit the image you have of him, Daniel warned. But it could also mean finding the man behind the mistakes. Maybe you'll see that strength can come from fragility. The sky overhead began to darken, and rain clouds gathered ominously. Jack's breath came quicker, fired by emotions he couldn't fully articulate. He had so many questions. What if the truth broke him? What if it brought his family to its knees, but then again, what if it set him free? What if he discovered not just his father's failures, but possibilities for redemption and understanding? With that thought pulsing through him, he stood up suddenly, resolute. I can't back down. I have to know. Daniel rose, seeing the spark of determination in Jack's eyes. Then let us begin. There's someone you need to meet. It's time you hear more of the story. Are you ready? As they walked toward the building where the shadows of the past lingered, Jack felt the ground beneath him shift once more. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, yet each step pulsed with the promise of revelation. What secrets awaited him? And would they be the key to unlocking the true essence of his father? They moved toward the old brick building, its weathered facade telling tales of forgotten students and the legacy of the past. Jack could feel each heartbeat echoing louder in his chest as they approached the entrance. Daniel opened the door, and a musty smell greeted them, mixed with the scent of old paper and history. Are you sure you're ready for this? Daniel asked, pausing to gauge Jack's reaction. The hint of uncertainty lingered in his eyes. Jack swallowed hard, casting a glance at the flickering fluorescent lights overhead. I have to be. I need to know the truth, even if it hurts. The words felt heavy, yet liberating at the same time. They stepped inside, and the vast room unfolded before them, filled with shelves overflowing with dusty volumes. Jack scanned the titles, his heart racing. Each book felt like a door to the past, filled with answers he'd been searching for. Where do we start? Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. There's a name that keeps coming up in connection to your father, Daniel replied, moving toward a specific shelf. He pulled down a thick, leather-bound book, dust spiraling into the air. This might have what you need. Jack reached for the book, feeling its weight in his hands. He could sense the history it contained, a bridge to a time he found both intimidating and alluring. As he opened the book, an old photograph slipped out and landed at his feet. Jack picked it up, his breath catching in his throat. It was a snapshot of his father, younger and laughing, sitting next to a woman he didn't recognize. They looked happy, free in a way Jack had never seen. The woman's eyes sparkled with mischief, a stark contrast to the heavy shadows that had clouded his father's later years. Who is she? Jack's question trembled with a mix of curiosity and fear. Daniel studied the photo, its edges crinkling with age. That's a mystery you're going to uncover too. She was important to him, before everything went south. They had a connection that shifted everything. What do you mean? Your dad's choices, the paths he took, they all led back to moments like this. She represented the dreams he had before the weight of his life crushed him. Daniel said it softly, reinforcing the emotional ties with every word. Jack felt a surge of determination coursing through him. So, if I find her, I'll find out more about him? About why he became who he was? Exactly, Daniel said, his voice steady and encouraging. But finding her won't be easy. There might be obstacles that will test your resolve. Jack's hands tightened around the book, the rough edges yet familiar gave him comfort. I've faced the darkness before. I'm not afraid. Daniel nodded, impressed. Good. Because the truth may not be what you expect, it might change everything. With adrenaline surging through him, Jack felt a fire ignite within. He was no longer just a son hoping to piece together his father's story, he was now a seeker on a quest that would redefine everything. As he turned to the next page, a slip of paper fell out, fluttering to the floor. It was a tiny note with an address scrawled in hasty handwriting. Meet me where it all began. Jack glanced at Daniel, realization dawning. This is it. This is where I start. They exchanged a look charged with urgency and determination. Jack's heart beat faster, anticipation mingling with fear. What awaited him at that address? Would the truth set him free, or would it bury him deeper into the riddle of his father's past? Let us go, Jack said, gripping the photograph and the book tightly. They stepped out of the building, moving toward the unknown, as the weight of the legacy loomed ahead. This was just the beginning, but a hard truth was waiting to be uncovered. What revelations lurked at the address, and how would they reshape everything Jack thought he knew about his father? The drive to the address felt endless. The streets blurred by, each passing moment pulling Jack deeper into a whirlwind of emotions he could scarcely contain. The photograph sat in his lap, a tether to a father he had only known through fragmented memories and painful truths. The weight of that image pressed down on him, but it also filled him with a flicker of hope, a hope that maybe, just maybe, he could find a missing piece of himself. Daniel navigated through the city, his brow furrowed in concentration. Jack peered out the window as familiar landmarks gave way to suburbs, their anonymity stifling. He tried to calm the turmoil inside him, a mix of longing and dread roiled in his stomach. What if he didn't like what he found? What if the truth shattered the last remnants of the father he thought he understood? Jack, Daniel's voice broke through his thoughts. You good? Jack nodded, though doubt clouded his face. I guess I'm just, he faltered, searching for the right words. What if finding her makes things worse? What if it just adds to the mess? Daniel pulled the car over, turning to face him. Look, it's going to be tough, but avoiding it won't help. You owe it to yourself and to your dad. This isn't just about him anymore. It's about you, too. Jack absorbed those words with a deep breath, realizing that Daniel was right. This journey was about confronting the person he had lost and maybe discovering who he was meant to be. When they reached the address, a small, weathered house stood before them, an unassuming structure with peeling paint and a sagging porch. Jack's heart raced again, wild and untamed. Was this where life-altering decisions were made? Where connections were forged and broken? Are you ready? Daniel asked, his eyes keen with concern. Yeah, Jack replied, though uncertainty echoed in his voice. He stepped out of the car, feeling the weight of his father's legacy settle heavily on his shoulders. As they walked toward the house, Jack's thoughts consumed him. The air was thick with history and unrealized dreams. He could almost hear memories echoing off the walls. He placed his hand on the weathered door, the wood rough beneath his fingertips. With a deep breath, he knocked. Silence enveloped them at first, then a shuffle from within. A moment later, the door creaked open, revealing a woman with silver-streaked hair, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. What do you want? She asked, her voice a mixture of toughness and weariness. Jack felt his heart skip. This was the woman from the photograph, he was sure of it. We're looking for, he started, but the words faltered in his throat. She scrutinized him, her gaze piercing. "You're Jack, aren't you? Your father's son." Her recognition stunned him. "You knew my dad?" "I knew him before he lost himself," she replied, her voice softening slightly, but the shadows of the past clung to her every word. "Come in." As they stepped inside, Jack felt the gravity of the moment. He was crossing a threshold into a world where his father's choices shaped reality. "What were you to him?" Jack said, trying to keep his voice steady as they settled into the living room filled with faded photographs and memories. She glanced at the floor, her eyes clouded with emotion. "I was the girl with dreams, once." The silence that followed felt heavy, charged with unspoken truths. Jack's stomach tightened, and he glanced at Daniel, who wore a look of encouragement, gesturing that he could ask anything. "This picture, I found it in an old book." Jack pulled it from his pocket, extending it toward her. "What happened between you two? Why did he walk away?" The woman's gaze grew distant, and Jack could see the shadows flicker across her face as if memories were rising from the depths of the past. "It's complicated," she began, but before she could elaborate, the door swung open behind them, revealing a young man, a stranger. "Mom, who are they?" he demanded, his tone challenging. Jack felt the air shift, tension mounting in the room. "Wait, what?" The questions swirled in his mind. Who was this? And how did he fit into this family tapestry? As Jack gathered himself, the weight of the moment pressed on him. The truth was just beginning to unfold, but would it lead him toward answers or further into chaos? Before he could voice another question, the young man took a step forward, eyes narrowed. "You don't belong here." Jack's heart raced, echoing the urgency of the situation. How did he find a way forward when every new piece brought more confusion? He needed answers, but at what cost? Jack felt cornered, like he was being scrutinized under a spotlight. The young man's challenge hung in the air, thick with hostility. Jack's pulse quickened. He wasn't here for a fight. He was searching for the truth. "Look, I'm just trying to find out about my dad," Jack said, keeping his tone measured. He had to stay focused on the reason for this visit, no matter the tension swirling around him. "I'm not here to cause trouble." The young man's expression remained hardened, his distrust palpable. "You think showing up here gives you the right to dig into our past?" "Josh, stop," the woman interjected, cutting through the tension like a knife. She turned to Jack, her demeanor shifting. "He's not what you think he is, Josh. He just needs to know." Jack glanced between them, sensing the underlying hurt that had been festering for years. "Please, just tell me what happened between you two. I need to know." The air felt charged, as if a storm were brewing around them. The mother glanced away, her fingers tracing the edges of an old photo frame. "Your father and I were young, filled with dreams until those dreams turned into nightmares. Life pushed him in a direction he never intended." Those words cut deep. Jack felt the weight of pain and regret seeping through the room. He could sense the young man, Josh, trying to shield his mother from the heartbreak that lingered, but it didn't ease the tide of questions crashing against the shore of Jack's mind. "But why did he leave?" Jack pressed, desperation creeping into his voice. "Was it because of you? Was it my fault?" "No," she said sharply, then softened. "No, Jack. It was never your fault. The choices he made were his own, but they took a toll on everyone, including you." Jack's throat tightened at the realization. Every decision, every missing moment in his life was possibly connected to this woman and the legacy of his father. So, he was running from something. "Yes," she sighed, her eyes glistening. But what he couldn't run from was his own fear. Fear of what he might become. Fear of losing the very people he loved. Josh crossed his arms, skepticism still etched across his face. "And now you want to waltz in and change everything? You think that just knowing will make things better?" Jack shook his head, feeling the weight of the entire encounter. I'm not here to change anything. I just want to understand, to know who he was. To figure out who I am because of that. Realizing the emotional stakes, Daniel stepped in, his calm presence a counterbalance to the tension. Maybe we all need to talk this out. The past doesn't have to dictate the future. Jack deserves answers, and so do you, Josh. The young man's hardened exterior seemed to falter slightly at Daniel's words, confusion flickering in his eyes. Perhaps the truth was as murky for him as it was for Jack. Will you listen? Jack asked quietly, meeting Josh's gaze with all the sincerity he could muster. I don't want to cause harm. I just want to piece together what I lost. After an anxious pause, Josh exhaled sharply. Fine. But don't think you can come here and play the victim. You don't know half of what we've been through. Jack nodded, taking a deep breath. This was a fragile moment loaded with potential, but it hung by a thread. Each family wound was deep and painful, and he was entangled in them now. Just tell me everything, Jack urged. We need to face the past together if we're ever going to find peace in the future. As the three of them sat in a circle, the air between them began to crack, but not without pain. Would they be able to untangle the web of hurt? Or would diving into the truth only tear them further apart? Jack felt hope, but with it came turbulence. How much darkness lay in the shadows of this family history? And then, as Jack searched each of their faces for assurance, he knew they were about to embark on a journey that could change everything. But would it bring healing or deeper scars? As they braced for the revelations ahead, an urgent thought raced through Jack's mind. Was he ready for the truth, no matter how deep it cut? Jack took a moment to collect himself. Their eyes, heavy with unspoken memories, bore into him. Okay, he said, breaking the silence. Let us start from the beginning. Tell me about my dad. Who was he before all this? The room felt like it held its breath. Josh shifted, his posture relaxing just a fraction. It was a small victory, but Jack seized it. The woman took a deep breath, her fingers still tracing the frames, seemingly seeking comfort in the past. Your dad, he was passionate, she began, her voice softening with a hint of nostalgia. He had dreams, big ones. He wanted to become someone who could change the world. I believed in him. We dreamed together. Josh rolled his eyes, a gesture filled with resentment. Dreams don't mean much when you run away from them. Josh, please, she whispered, maintaining her gaze on Jack. He was scared. The pressure was too much. He started pulling away from me, from everything we built. Jack swallowed hard. His father's dreams had shattered under the weight of his own fear. It felt like the man he was searching for was slipping through his fingers. What changed? What made him leave? Tears brimmed in her eyes. We had a fight, an argument. I wanted him to talk about it, to share his burdens. But instead, he decided it was easier to disappear rather than face the pain, his pain, our pain. Jack's heart sank at the realization. His father hadn't just left physically, he'd abandoned the very foundation of love and hope they had built. So, he didn't just leave you, he left me too. Was our family not enough? Jack, it was never about you, she replied, her voice shaking. He thought he was protecting you by leaving, by sparing you from his failures. But in doing so, he only created a bigger wound. That emptiness, it followed you like a shadow. Josh snorted, his disbelief palpable. A shadow? That's rich. People need to take responsibility for their choices. They can't just run away. Everyone deals with pain differently. She snapped back, frustration spilling over. Stop. Jack intervened, his voice raised with urgency. Fighting won't help us. We're all hurting, and the blame isn't going to fix anything. A silence washed over them, heavy and suffocating. They were bound together by shared grief, a silent agreement hanging in the air. The past had to be addressed. Jack cleared his throat, trying to lighten the mood. So what happened after he left? Did he ever come back? Did he think of me? The emptiness only grew, she said slowly. I tried reaching out, sending letters, anything to open a door. He never responded. It was like he had vanished into thin air. But I hoped he'd find his way back. Hope was a fickle thing, Jack realized. A delicate construct built from longing and fear, one that often left people fragile. Did he ever talk about me? He asked, almost in a whisper. The question hung like a ghost in the space between them. He loved you. That much I know, she replied, her voice breaking. But he felt unworthy. He thought he couldn't be the father you deserved. Jack felt a weight settle on his chest. A father who wore his fears like chains, shackling his love and leaving his son adrift. Your dad thought he was protecting you by keeping his distance, Josh said, his tone shifting. But all he did was make things worse. Just by leaving, he created a void. Nods of agreement filled the room as they all met each other's glances. Jack's heart raced. If they could acknowledge this void, maybe they could confront something even larger. That fear could hold them prisoner, not just his father. He took a breath, feeling a revelation surge within him. Maybe it's time for all of us to stop running. As painful as it is, we can start to rebuild from here, together. Their eyes met again, a new understanding beginning to form, fragile yet full of possibility. But could they truly reshape the narrative, let go of the fear that had kept them apart for so long? As Jack searched for the courage to push forward, a new question arose: would they be able to open that door together? And if they stepped through, would the truth on the other side bring them healing or further fracture the bonds already strained? With the tension still thick in the air, Jack felt something shift within him. It was as if he were standing at the edge of a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown. He looked from his mother to Josh and back again. They were all so different, yet this moment bound them together. Let us try something, he suggested, his voice steadying. Let us share our stories, the moments that hurt us the most after he left. I think it might help us figure out how to move forward. Josh frowned, but Jack pressed on. It doesn't have to be all about him. Share how you felt, your experiences. We can't keep running from this. There was a fire in Jack's heart now, a spark of hope breaking through the chaotic fog. I'll go first, Jack said, gathering courage. When he left, I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. Everything I knew was gone. I remember sitting on my bed, staring at my reflection in the mirror, wondering why I wasn't enough. It changed how I saw myself. I felt invisible. The quiet nestled in the room like a protective blanket, allowing for vulnerability. Josh rolled his shoulders back, squaring up against the emotional weight, but he spoke. For me, it was every baseball game I played after he left. I'd look into the stands, searching for his face. And when I didn't see him, it felt like the emptiness echoed in the cheers. I felt like I was playing for ghosts. His voice cracked at the end, and Jack could sense the struggle beneath Josh's tough exterior. Jack nodded, feeling a connection form. It's hard to carry that disappointment. It feels like a weight you can't shake off. Josh crossed his arms but didn't look away. Yeah, it makes you wonder if you can even trust people. Turning to their mother, Jack saw tears glistening in her eyes. How about you? What was the darkest moment for you? After a long moment, she exhaled deeply. It was the day you turned 6. I had planned a party, full of laughter and joy. But all I could think about was how he should have been there. I put on the happy face for you, but inside, I was crumbling. I failed you both in my own way. Jack felt his heart ache for her. Mom, you did your best. You gave us everything you had. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, trying to regain some composure. But that's the problem. I thought I was enough, and then I realized I wasn't. I never wanted to be the reason you felt lost. Yes, but we felt lost anyway, Jack said softly, leaning back slightly. Maybe it's time we confront that together. Let us not just talk about the pain of the past. Let us think of how we might heal. A flicker of hope crossed Josh's face, and he uncrossed his arms. What if we create a sort of support group for each other? Together, we could face those ghosts instead of running from them. Exactly. Jack exclaimed, an idea blossoming. We could write down our memories, our feelings, and share them on our own terms. No judgment, just understanding. Let us open that door we have been afraid to touch. A quiet resolve began to grow between them. They were finally striking a chord that had long been out of tune. As they began to discuss logistics for their idea, Jack sensed a shift in the air, a hope for clarity, healing, and even a little love. But deep down, uncertainty lingered. Would their newfound unity withstand the revelations they would face? Could they truly unearth the past and reshape it into something better? His heart was racing at the thought, and he realized they were only beginning to scratch the surface of deep-rooted pain and longing. Suddenly, his phone buzzed on the table, a reminder of the world outside. When he glanced at the screen, a name instantly froze him in place. It was the last person he had expected to hear from, the one person who could shift everything again. Guys. I think we need to take a detour, he whispered, his pulse quickening. I just got a message from him. The room fell silent as Jack's heart raced, the tension thickening around them like fog. The name on his phone felt like a ghost from the past, one he had thought was long buried. The truth of his father's legacy was already heavy, but this could change everything. What does it say? Josh asked, eyes narrowed, the hostility fading just enough for curiosity to creep in. It's my dad, Jack replied, his voice trembling. He wants to meet. What? His mother gasped, her expression a flicker of hope mixed with disbelief. Josh's face twisted in confusion, the boy caught between wanting to protect his mother and feeling an urge to understand. I don't know if that's a good idea, Josh said, his tone defensive. He's the one who left, why should he get to come back now? Because I need answers, Jack said firmly, his resolve hardening. We all do. This is a chance to confront him. We can finally face the man behind all the pain. A hesitant silence wafted in the air, as if the walls were listening. Their mother searched his eyes, attempting to gauge his determination. What do you think, Jack? Are you sure you're ready for this? Meeting him could unearth more than you expect. Those words hung weightily, but Jack felt an undeniable urge swelling within him. I have to know why he left. I want to understand him, and therefore, I can understand me. Okay, but don't go in blind. We're here for you, she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. Jack nodded. Thank you. Let us do this together. As they gathered their thoughts, a new plan crystallized in Jack's mind. They would meet his father, but he would not go alone. They would stand together as a family, an unwilling but united front against the ghosts that had haunted them for too long. Let us give him a chance, Jack urged, his voice steady. We've faced so much already. What's one more confrontation? Josh sighed, his arms crossed again but with less defiance. Fine. But if he acts like a jerk, we're out. Deal, Jack agreed, heart pounding with both fear and resolve. The tense agreement hung in the air, sparking a flicker of hope, a glimmer of what could be if they faced their past head-on. As they prepared for the meeting, they talked about the questions that burned within them, the years of silence, the moments of hurt, the echoes of love lost in time. The day of the meeting arrived, and Jack found himself in front of the familiar weathered house once more, this time, with purpose. With each step toward the door, the weight of the past whispered in his ears, but he felt the strength of his newfound family alongside him. This time, they would not be divided. With a deep breath, Jack knocked, feeling both terrified and liberated at the same time. The door creaked open, and there stood his father, eyes wide, shock and joy mingling in a storm of unspoken emotions. Jack, his father's voice cracked a sound that felt like years of regret. "I'm here," Jack said firmly, standing tall. "And I brought you something, my family. We need to talk." As anticipation thrummed in the air, they stepped inside, ready to face the remnants of the past. Each moment felt charged with potential as they crossed into territory filled with long-held grudges, shattered dreams, and the hope of healing. Jack looked around the familiar space, memories flooding back. He studied his father's face, searching for any sign of the man he yearned to know. Vulnerability hung like a fragile thread in the room, daring them to reach out. As lips parted to share history that had long gone unsaid, Jack felt a warmth rising from within. He had been searching his whole life for answers, but perhaps this was the moment to start writing a new chapter. A chapter filled with connection, empathy, and the courage to confront their shared pain. And as Jack prepared to speak, he realized that healing would require more than just the truth. It would take love, the kind that transformed a shattered family into something whole again. "Let us start from the beginning," he said, voice steady, wanting to stitch together their history. He was ready to unraveling and transform the pages of loss into something transcendent. This would be their path together, as a family, brighter than the scars of yesterday. As this journey unfolded, Jack felt more than the rise of hope. He felt rebirth, a sense of identity rooted in understanding and compassion. And perhaps, just perhaps, this moment would define not just their past, but offer a future full of healing. If you are moved by Jack's journey, if you believe in second chances and the power of truth, then you need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and transform. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure stories like this reach more seekers. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about Jack's journey, share the impact this story had on you. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who could use a reminder of the power of family and redemption. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second. Let us spread this message of hope together.